Well, did you see the latest news on this that broke within like the last hour?
Yeah, there is.
They leaked the transcript.
Oh, they did?
Oh, no. So I mean, it's on Bloomberg. But Witkoff supposedly. I mean, like I don't know what the transcript says. I haven't read it, but the way that Bloomberg is presenting the story is that. Well, here it is for you.
Extremely rare leak of a phone call transcript. I mean, here we'll start on this first. Ukraine agrees to a peace deal. Only minor details left, right?
This,
and in the morning,
this leak suggests that that's not the case.
Yeah. So this morning, when it first came out, was the news was that Zelensky was going to come to the United States of America or like have a conversation with Donald Trump during Thanksgiving, where they were going to basically sign off on this quote unquote peace deal. He cheated on us with Bilibili. Yeah, because you need to be better. Okay. The Bilibili audience is better. All right. But it turns out that there was no imminent Trump-Zelensky meeting. Driscoll to meet the Ukrainians and Witkoff to meet Putin. Trump will meet Putin and Zelensky only when the deal is final or in the final stages. Okay. And here were the details. Over the past week, my team has made tremendous progress with respect to the end of war between Russia and Ukraine, a war that would have never started if I were president. Last month, 25,000 soldiers died. The original 28-point peace plan, which was drafted by the United States, has been fine-tuned with additional input from both sides, and there are only a few remaining points of disagreement. In the hopes of finalizing this peace plan, I have directed my special envoy, Steve Witkoff. I can't believe Chad is still losing their minds over a joke that I made about Bilibili. Okay, lock in, okay? Lock in, chatters. We're talking about the news now, okay? Jesus Christ. You were approving the point that I was making. Oh, you found the you found the clip.
What is this filter?
I don't, dude. I don't. No, I don't. No, anyway, we're it's too late now. But thank you for finding it, chatter. So anyway, a few remaining points of disagreement. In the hopes of finalizing this peace plan, I have directed my special envoy Steve Witkoff to meet with the President Putin in Moscow, and at the same time, Secretary of Army Dan Driscoll will be meeting with the Ukrainians. I will be briefed on all progress made, along with Vice President J.D. Vance, Secretary of State Marco Rubio, Secretary of War Pete Hegseth, and White House Chief of Staff Susie Wiles. I look forward to hopefully meeting with President Zelensky and President Putin soon, but only when the deal to end this war is final or in its final stages. Thank you for your attention to this very important matter, and let's all hope that peace can be accomplished as soon as possible. It immediately destroyed that previous reporting that speculated that this deal was ready to be finalized. And Bloomberg had the exclusive transcript. Putin advised to discuss plans for dealing with Trump. Transcript. Okay. Senior foreign policy advisor, Russian President Yuri Yushakov. From left, economic advisors, the Russian President Kirill Dmitriev and U.S. Special Envoy Steve Witkoff arrived for talks with Russian President Vladimir Putin at the Kremlin in Moscow in an image supplied by Russian state media. This was back in April 25th, but the call is from October 29th. A phone call between Yuri Yushakov, Vladimir Putin's most senior foreign policy advisor, and Kirill Dmitriev, an economic advisor for the Russian president. The transcript was prepared after Bloomberg reviewed a recording of the call. The original Russian is included below for translation for reference. Okay? Ushakov, hello. Wait, why did they put hello? You could say hello. This is a transcript that has been, like, I guess they wanted to make it more Russian. Hello.
I'll be
Сука, блядь. Как дела? Как тебя зовут? Hello.
Oh my God.
Yuri Viktorovich.
I'll be, yes, okay. Kirill Alexandrovich. Well, I've sent everything there. We'll talk tomorrow.
Well, great. I flew to Saudi Arabia, but it seems to me it's very important because it's a really good way forward.
Well, we need the maximum, don't you think?
Oh, come on. You don't.
Well, we need the maximum, don't you think?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I feel bad doing that.
No.
What do you think? Otherwise, what is the point of passing anything on?
Нет, look. I think we'll just make this paper from our position, and I'll informally pass it along, making it clear that it is all informal, and I'll let them do it like their own. But I don't think they'll take exactly our version, but at least it'll be as close to it as possible.
Well, that's exactly the point. They might not take and say that it was agreed with us. That's what I am afraid of.
Нет, 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 сука, блядь. I'll say it exactly as you say it, word for word.
They might twist it later. That's all. There is that risk. There is. Well, all right. Never mind. We'll see.
Yeah, it seems to me you can talk later with Steve about this paper. We will do everything neatly. Thank you so much, Yuri Viktorovich. Thank you so much. Thank you. Goodbye.
They're so much
That's
nicer.
it.
They have such an. That's like so nice.
Okay, so this is the big takeaway from this is what?
Well, the idea. I think this is like supposed to be piece of evidence, but the whole idea is that they, the Russians, like essentially claim, or it's what's being claimed is this. That
Witkoff advised Russia on how to pitch Ukraine plan to
like
Trump.
tell this or whatever. I'll be honest. I don't know. Like, I don't have an immediate opinion on like. Oh well, this is overstepping the bounds of diplomacy. Although I imagine Bloomberg wouldn't be packaging it if they didn't think that like this. If they didn't think that the news would like change what's going on.
Someone just said this is why CBS will never win. Yes. CBS.
Oh, so we said the second call because the first call is one with Witkoff on it directly. So we did Boris and Natasha.
Also notable that Bloomberg reviewed a second call involving Putin aide Yushakov. This time, instead speaking to Witkoff, Yushakov talks to Putin advisor Kirill Dmitriev. Interestingly, they are also concerned about the peace plan being viewed as the Russian position.
So this is where it's Witkoff saying directly, "Oh, I like this."
Hold on, I'll open the image in a new tab.
Yeah, this is awesome.
Okay, you can be Steve Witkoff because you're too concerned about doing the voice.
Well, it's, I'm not an ethnic.
All right,
that's all I'll say. Yuri, here's what I would do. My recommendation.
Please.
I would make the call and just reiterate that you congratulate the president on this achievement, that you supported it, that you respect that he is a man of peace, and you're really glad to have seen it happen. So I would say that. I think from that, it's going to be a really good call.
Keep going.
Because let me tell you what I told the president. I told the president that the Russian Federation has always wanted a peace deal. That's my belief. I told the president I believe that. And I believe the issue is that we have two nations that are having a hard time coming to a compromise. And when we do, we're going to have a peace deal. I'm even thinking that maybe we set out like a 20-point peace proposal, just like we did in Gaza. We put a 20-point Trump plan together that was 20 points for peace. And I'm thinking maybe we do the same thing with you. My point is this.
Okay, my friend. I think that very point our leaders could discuss. Hey, Steve, I agree with you that he will congratulate. He will say that Mr. Trump is a real peace man and so. That he will say.
But here's what I think would be amazing.
Okay.
What if, hear me out.
I will discuss that with my boss, and then I come back to you, okay?
Yeah, but because listen to what I'm saying. I want you to say, maybe just to say this to President Putin, because I have the deepest respect for President Putin. Maybe he says to President Trump, Steve and Yuri discussed a very similar 20-point plan to peace, and that could be something that we think might move the needle a little bit. We're open to those sorts of things, to explore what it's going to take to get a peace deal done. Now,
okay, you're getting progressively more Jewish accented with the Steve Witkoff.
Well, one of these things I'm more comfortable with. Can you guess why?
Okay, keep going.
Now, it's also like, can we make a deal? Now, me to you, I know what it's going to take to get a peace deal done. Donetsk and maybe a land swap somewhere. But I'm saying, instead of talking like that, let's talk more hopefully, because I think we're going to get to a deal here. And I think Yuri, the president, will give me a lot of space and discretion to get to the deal.
I see.
So if we can create that opportunity after this, I talked to Yuri and we had a conversation. I think that could lead to big stuff.
Okay, that sounds good.
And here's one more thing. Zelensky is coming to the White House on Friday.
I know that.
I will go to that meeting because they want me there. But I think if possible, we have the call with your boss before that Friday meeting.
Yeah, before, yeah?
Correct.
Okay. I got your advice. So I discuss that with my boss and then I come back to you, okay?
Okay, Yuri, I'll speak to you soon.
Great. Thank you so much. Thanks you.
Bye-bye.
That's good. This up that they will transcribe it as like bad English on purpose.
Well, it is like God.
Thanks you. Yes. But okay, I mean, this makes a lot of sense that Steve Witkoff is doing more work to convince Donald Trump than Steve Witkoff is finding himself doing more work to convince Donald Trump than to convince Vladimir Putin. Well, also partially because this quote unquote peace deal is a gift basket for all of Russia's maximalist demands, really. So it does make sense that he has to basically sell this to Donald Trump more than he has to sell this to Putin. Genius move for Witkoff to float this proposal to Putin's top foreign policy advisor on an open line. What could go wrong?
I mean, I think to me, there's a few interesting questions here. The first of which is that like this leaking will be a good test of how much is Witkoff like directly doing what Trump wants specifically, or is the fact that this leaks and Trump sees that this is how Witkoff represents Trump in private, will Trump be upset with that? And it's like hard for me, like I'm not, the fact that it got out, like the security piece of it, like we'll see how the facts come out on that. But as far as like the politics of it and how Trump responds, I guess to me the immediate question I have is like,
he might like
Trump,
it.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm getting at. That's what I think. Like
he likes being like a fake dictator,
and also he knows. Listen, this guy. What is the most common word in that transcript? If aside from the and you and thank and really and good, the most common word in that transcript has to be deal. It has to be deal. And so my suspicion is that this is actually Witkoff doing what Trump wants, and that the intendant and that the person making this leak probably knows that, and that what they're intending just to show, obviously, is to like, add more credence to the idea that like, oh, Trump is doing like Putin's bidding, or Trump is like selling out Ukraine and so forth. And if I'm a Ukrainian reading this, I might come to that conclusion too.
Yeah, I mean, there is, on the one hand, there is this scary conclusion that I think a lot of the American foreign policy side of things need to come to, which is that like America doesn't have the same motion that it once did. Like the period of like complete dominance from the dissolution of the USSR,
the century of American motion.
Yeah, it's over. Like we are back in multipolarity, and I would say that it's getting to a degree where it's like even worse than when it was, or not worse, but like it's even more evenly matched than it was during the Cold War. Perhaps even more advantageous for China, given its like connection to the rest of the world in terms of like being a manufacturing hub. Maybe I'm wrong on this, but that's my assessment.
Well, I agree with you. The idea that like, because to me, it's always sort of like in this moment, it's like obviously the U.S. has more military capacity than any other country by a long shot to do crazy damage, and we control shipping corridors through our navy. And China's navy isn't even like it's expanding and developing at a rate far faster than our own.
And it's like our logistics is the most impressive part of it. Like where our capacity to be everywhere around the world in like 48 hours is probably the most.
And like the dollar is like multipolarity is happening, but like the dollar is still also the world reserve currency.
Yeah,
like
China has seemingly by their own admission has no interest or no ambition, at least for now, to assert any sort of dominance or to tackle the dollar hegemony.
Brendan's here.
Oh, nice. Okay.
Let me.
No, and I'll get it. But yeah, we need another chair in here. Pull that out. Pull that microphone out. Oh my God, Farley. Yeah, Brendan Fraser, everybody. Yeah. It's a baby gate.
You take the green one. The mic, I meant.
Yeah. All right. We got the full stack Blowback boys in the building, ladies and gentlemen. Hold on, is this better? Oh. I don't know if it's better here way, but damn, Brendan Fraser looking sexy. Yeah. It's true. Wait, can you speak into the mic? Let's see.
Test 1, 2, 3.
Wait. Oh wait.
Test 1, 2, 3.
Okay, it's good, I think. Yeah.
Hey.
Very nice.
Let me see how the guest shot works. I think the guest shot might be a little bit better. It's a little bit darker, but
Cute.
What do you guys? You guys were doing a little Eastern Promises before I got here.
Yeah,
we were doing.
Well, he was like Hassan was really getting when I got to do Borscht Belt, it got easier for me.
Yeah, for me, I wanted to show the audience and those tuning in from home why I'm better than CBS News under the control of Barry Weiss.
I see.
Because Barry Weiss is never going to do accurate renditions of leaked transcript phone calls between Russian officials, you know?
Absolutely.
She might air some sort of, calls between Palestinian resistance fighters that are scripted, written in advance very well.
Hello. I am a Palestinian Islamic Jihad guy. I don't know what accent that
Hello,
would
I'm
be.
in Palestinian Islamic Jihad.
Yeah, and I
They
love
put our base right under the air conditioning.
Yeah. I love shooting rockets directly at my own Gazans.
Yeah, no, but now we're back. Now we were talking about also like how the leak might play or like why it's there, what it suggests, and how like what Hassan was getting at was that, you know, like American power is extremely diminished at this moment. Like we can't throw our weight around like we used to. So part of why Witkoff is like doing, you know, he's having this conversation in this way is not just because like Trump is like, oh, Trump is, you know, like licking Putin's balls or whatever, but it's also just because like, yeah, America's not that clouded. And if we want Russia to do any deal at all, like this is how they move. This is how the White House has to move.
Yeah, it's America's totally chopped. America's totally cooked, and America no longer has the same motion that it did on the global stage. And I think it's a hard thing for people to come to terms with. Like, maybe I'm wrong, but that's just what I've seen. Like, this isn't even a defense of Donald Trump, but like he doesn't have a lot of options in general, it seems, to enforce his will upon, whether he has it or not. He doesn't have a lot of options to get Russia to do certain things. I think there was a point of leverage in the beginning that Biden had that's gone now. And that was directly a consequence of like what the battle lines look like in Ukraine. The Ukrainian military no longer having the manpower to even use the Western gear and equipment that they're shipping over is a point of consideration here. Like the bargain of, does Ukraine basically throw its future generation into the front lines in an effort to ensure a potential victory, but like that's not guaranteed at all? Who knows how well that would work? Or are they supposed to come to the table and basically concede to the maximalist demands that Russia is making?
I don't know if did you guys see I think it's former Zelensky speechwriter said, you know, we're never gonna, each successive deal will be worse than this.
Yeah.
Which you could retroactively say meant that every possibility for peace before this that has existed was better than the one that came after. And yeah, probably years ago, this should have been something that
and it would also then follow that all of the money that we've spent and all of the aid and all of the political will that we've, you know, worked on whipping up to make sure that we could support Ukraine was for naught, because at the end of spending all of these resources, they have even less than they would have had, I guess, like 2 years ago.
Indeed.
People keep saying like Russia still has higher casualties than Ukraine. Yes, but Russia's also like 3 times the size of you. Russia's a bigger country, okay? Like, and especially the way that they have waged war thus far means that if you're the bigger country, you have more people to throw into the meat grinder. Like, I don't understand how people look at the situation and go, well, Russia's losing more people. Okay, but the battle lines have not moved. So it clearly doesn't matter that Russia is losing more people, at least from their perspective, because the battle line, actually, it's not even true to say the battle lines haven't moved. They've only moved further and further into Ukraine.
Yep.
Correct.
So,
well, and also like Russia, like, I mean, there's also a point where all this is irrelevant, because like Russia has by now successfully demonstrated that, yeah, the costs can be high for them. It doesn't, like, they've shown that they're willing to endure that and that they can do it with a far less burden in terms of political capital, at least, than like the Ukraine fight has been in the West, where, like, you know, I mean, you look at every country in continental Europe, and the Ukraine war has like touched their domestic politics dramatically. You know, I think probably Germany most significantly and most obviously. It's just kind of crazy to look at this and still point to like, well, we did, you know, to take the Brzezinski attitude of like, well, we bled the Russians a lot. Like, to what end?
Yeah. I mean, that's like, sure, that's the position of, if you're an American who is invested in the American military industrial complex, then yeah, this is like, who gives a shit how many Ukrainians die, right? Like, that's the Lindsey Graham position. For 5% of our military budget, we've been able to wither away a foreign adversary's troops without a single American active duty service member dying in the process. Like, I'd say that's a good bargain. Those are the words of Lindsey Graham. That is the official position of the American, like that's the NatSec position, right? And it's channeled by not only Lindsey Graham, but even the likes of like Elizabeth Warren and even Democrats as well, like supposedly progressive Democratic politicians as well. That is the NatSec position. It's bipartisan. But ultimately, if you're invested in preserving the nation state of Ukraine, if you're invested in like having Ukraine as a country, as a sovereign nation, at a certain point, there needs to be a cessation of hostilities, right? So what are you going to do? In this day and age, with the set of circumstances that we have, America does not have the capacity, I think, to really punish Russia. And at most, what they could do potentially is try to sever Russia's ties with India, but then India is a bulwark against China, and India actually benefits greatly from being the mediator of like Russian oil and gas into European markets. So they're not going to give up on the leverage position that they have between the United States of America and China. So how much could you force India to basically try and punish Russia, aside from the sanctions that we've already implemented on Russia, which the Russian government has clearly positioned against, knowing full well that this could possibly happen?
You had a little bit more of an ability, like I think of we did a whole season on Afghanistan and the U.S. covert and somewhat overt attempt to sabotage Russia's war, or the Soviet Union's war in Afghanistan. But in, as they say, the more multipolar situation we have now, it's a lot harder to whip people into one overwhelming, web of obstacles for a years-long war. And the Soviets also controlled most of Afghanistan. They occupied Afghanistan for the most part, unlike Ukraine, where, swaths of the country, you're not, it's not Gaza. And so you really, it's quite a piecemeal attempt to do what I think we used to be able to do a lot more easily in the Cold War.
Absolutely. And there's the geopolitics of it, right? Like what Brendan was describing in terms of this newer multipolar environment where, yeah, we can't pressure our allies into doing the things that we used to be able to get our allies to do,
because there's an alternative out there.
So that absolutely. And there's also like, even if the alternative isn't there yet, a lot of these countries are not willing to, for example, like foreclose strong relationships with China simply because like the US is trying to bully them into doing it now. I think Argentina is probably the funniest example of that, because we literally bailed out Milei, and then Argentina now they now export all their soybeans to China. And so China buys their soybeans instead of ours because of the trade war. So Argentina is helping out China, and it's it's like the math of this is not as simple as it was before.
Yeah, but I also think Besant's friend has his Argentinian debt secured. Like his big gamble is going to pay off eventually. Well, they won't default.
I'm sure. Listen.
At least for the time being.
If there's one thing you can say about the Argentinian economy, it's that it will never again go off a cliff.
Yeah.
The other thing, though, is that, the geopolitics of it, I totally, that totally registers. The other thing I would add is the technological piece of it, which is that in the days of the Afghanistan war, right, the Soviet Union had to commit huge numbers of troops. The war incurred its reputation as Soviet Union's Vietnam, not because it's analogous to the Vietnam War as itself, but it's because of the impact it had on veterans and returning people. Like, it exacted this incredibly high social cost.
And the idea that it was a quagmire without him.
The quack, precisely. But there is also now, like in the Ukraine and Russia war, I mean, we've seen like drones and all of these other ways of having like war being waged technologically, where you can deal damage to human targets and to human beings and to enemy soldiers as well as civilians. But you also like use way fewer, you can expend fewer resources in doing that. And so the whole like, you know, the drone aspect of this and the other pieces of remote warfare that are now just tolerated are, I mean, it's totally like up to the stakes in terms of blood, and limited our ability to, I think, you know, like it's like winning a war like that is just a lot harder of a task than it was before.
You are incredibly invested in having Ukraine giving up. This war is not decided, and the U.S. have little leverage to force a complete surrender of Ukraine as a sovereign state. Russia has spent its Soviet stocks of armor and artillery, and the destruction of its oil and gas sector is adding to a recessionary yet inflationary economy. If you want a more nuanced view of what is going on, then watch Perun on YouTube. Okay.
I was reading that. That was just, it was funny seeing some of these comments.
I don't understand how much people just like lean into their pre-established positions, no matter how much the evidence on the ground suggests the exact opposite. Okay? The evidence on the ground suggests the opposite. You can keep saying you can keep saying that, you know, I'm too invested in like Russian resources or something, and I'm like glazing Russia or whatever the fuck you want. But that was unironically what people used to say when I said the initial peace deal that was negotiated early on after the Ukrainian forces were able to deliver a defensive blow to the Russian incursion at the time, when they were like, oh, it's just going to be a 2-week special military operation, and we're able to actually push them back from Kiev, was the highest point of leverage. Okay. And at the time, people were saying that I was wrong to say this, that I was actually so invested in, I was a Russian op. I was so invested in Vladimir Putin's success or anything like that. But it was like, it turns out years later, when you look at it in the rearview mirror, it does actually come across like it was a sound analysis back then. But instead of people actually looking at this with a critical lens, they just keep going along. The counteroffensive is going to succeed, and then it doesn't. And all it does is it kills more Ukrainian people, and it leads to Russia basically digging in harder and harder to the positions that they've taken. Neither side is winning the ground war. You can't say that if you look at the battle lines, chatter. Like, that's it. You can't say that neither side is winning the ground war if Russia has militarily occupied a significant percentage of Ukrainian territory, right?
If you have
that's just literally every map that you can look at right now on BBC, on American news, when they show like the red Russian invasion of Ukraine. Okay. If you were to say Russia will demand more and more territory, I'm with you, right? I understand that. I understand where you're coming from with that. Like, I think it's a reasonable suspicion to have. Okay. But ultimately, there is not, bro, it took Russia 2 years to take over 1%. It feels like sports fans.
I mean,
like coping with a team that's losing.
Like, okay, look. Like, I get it, but like he averaged a triple double. No, I think that
it's Chris Potts away at a 43-point lead with a key 3-pointer, you know?
I think yes, because exactly, it's like, oh, it's stalemated. It's stalemated solidly inside Ukraine.
Yeah.
I don't know what to tell you.
And not only that, but the real significant problem here isn't that like Russia has hardened its positions and dug into Ukrainian territory, which is just the truth. But beyond that, there is a problem, significant problem with desertions. There's a significant problem with like re-upping the front lines with manpower, right? And that is reflected even in the polls inside of Ukraine, where people are basically saying, we don't think there's going to be a reasonable solution to this that is good for Ukrainians in general, but we do want the end to the hostilities. Do you see what I mean? Look, I live a lot closer to the war, so obviously it matters to me more than to you. Dude, as an American citizen, technically my government's the most invested in continuing this. The fuck are you talking about? That's the reason why I started off by saying like, hey, this is huge. This is European analysis on this issue, like the bulwark against Russian Soviet era fears. Okay? The notion that like Europeans are terrified of Russian incursion. I get it. Okay, I understand. But you know who's the closest to this? Ukrainians. They're the ones who are actually the closest to this. They're the ones who have the most investment because they're Ukrainian. They're the ones who are getting killed. They're the ones whose friends and family members are getting slaughtered. They're the ones whose homes are getting blown up. Okay, you are expanding on it without a guest or anyone that disagrees with you on it. Okay, well, sorry. I should bring someone. I should bring Drew Pavlov on so he can teach me what's what. Or what's his face? What was it? The Russia must be balkanized guy?
Gunther.
Gunther, yeah. We
NATO Gunther.
We need Gunther.
You actually should get him on.
Yeah.
You don't have to talk to him about this, but just get him on the show.
This is no different than Hamas wanting to cease cessation of hostilities and people being against it because Israel should be punished. Exactly. And my position on this is consistent, where I was, I'm saying that this is good. Like the ceasefire is good, even if it's like short-lived.
But I find it rich to claim that you... Writ? What?
Brother, I'm saying that the United States' ambition here is not the emancipatory needs of Ukrainians being advanced, but instead simply to funnel as many of our old refurbished gear, our surplus military equipment to Ukraine at a price point that actually the military industrial complex is totally excited by. That's it. That's the American. America is on the right side of this morally, but for the wrong reasons. Okay, so even if you're on the right side of this issue for the wrong reasons, for the wrong ambitions, you ultimately are going to come up with a deal that is horrible for Ukrainians, which is offering additional Ukrainian territory that Russia hasn't even taken on militarily, right? And that's where we're at now. That's where we're at. I don't think it's an appropriate deal. I don't think it's a just deal at all. I don't think you understand. Not gonna lie, Ukraine since the start has been your weakest topic. I know it is. I'm sorry that I'm not giving you.
You actually get the worst marks in Ukraine.
Yeah, I know. People always yell at me over this, and then slowly but surely, but quietly, they turn around and go, "Okay, maybe this was a better time to use maximum leverage." Don't worry, Trump's negotiation power is being used for the best things. What is this?
Oh, this is about the news of the day.
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, that is actually a W.
I mean, it's listen, if pervy Hollywood executives can make a comeback, who can't?
Yeah. Read Levin Anatol on the actual reality of the Ukraine ceasefire deal absurdly being labeled as capitulation. Note in particular the point about the future limit to Ukraine's standing army. These details don't matter to those opposing. They simply want the war to continue. What is this?
You interviewed that guy, right?
Yeah.
Anatol
Levin.
Levin.
He's a Blowback guest. I don't remember if we included it, but
he's a Quincy Institute. He's a Quincy Institute guy.
It's a bonus episode.
Season 4 bonus episode.
Since much of the Western media has absurdly described this as a capitulation of Russia's maximalist demands, it is necessary to point out the ways in which the plan also represents Russian concessions. These are evident in comparison to Putin's aims when he launched the invasion, but also relative to the Russian demands set out in June 2024, which still officially represent Russia's position. Crucially, the plan secures Russia's formal recognition of Ukraine's right to join the European Union, the key issue behind the Maidan revolt in 2013-2014. If Ukraine and the EU can make this a reality, it would anchor Ukraine in the West far more firmly than a NATO membership alone could. In addition, while Russia has previously demanded that Russian be established as an official second national language in Ukraine, the current plan takes a more limited approach. It stipulates that Ukraine will adopt EU standards on religious tolerance and protection of linguistic minorities, and that both countries will agree to abolish discriminatory measures while guaranteeing the rights of Ukrainian and Russian media and educational institutions. This is a very significant concession because my Russian sources told me only last month that given EU's total failure to protect Russian minority rights in the Baltic states, no EU guarantees could be taken seriously. In the plan, Russia also abandons its previous demand that Ukraine cede to the entirety of the Kherson and Zaporizhia provinces and receives only de facto recognition of its control over Crimea and the Donbass. Instead of the immediate suspension of sanctions, Russia receives only the vague promise that sanctions relief will be discussed and agreed upon in phases on a case-by-case basis. The provision for amnesty for both sides has been portrayed as a concession to Russia in order to get case against Russian leaders at the International Criminal Court dropped. However, Wall Street Journal reports that a senior U.S. official said that Ukraine significantly changed one of the 28 points in the version that appeared online. In an apparent move to expose alleged corruption, the draft had called for an audit of all international aid. Ukraine had received. The language was changed to say all parties will receive full amnesty for their actions during the war.
Take that deal. I'll take that deal.
The Ukrainian standing armed forces are to be limited to 600,000 men, but far from being real concessions, this looks like a device to save Putin's face. Ukraine cannot possibly sustain a peacetime standing army of 600,000 men. In any future war, it would call up reserves. Moreover, in the Istanbul talks in March 2022, Ukraine was proposing a limit of 250,000 men. Okay, that I didn't know. That actually is a significantly larger concession on the Russian front, especially considering how much more leverage Ukraine had at that time. But I don't know if that's the correct number or not.
I mean, it's also like it's a burden on Ukraine as well to just take that many people out of the prime working force because to have this larger standing army.
Well, also it seems like they're not actually going to have it. Like,
yeah, like it's very.
They're
like,
already scooping people up in the streets and throwing them into the back.
That's what I mean. Exactly. Like it's like they've already like poisoned the trust of generations in terms of like that. Like it just seems like it's less of a like the numbers are big for sure, but it's questionable.
On the Ukrainian side, the biggest and most difficult concession by far is agreeing to withdraw from approximately 14% of the Donbass region that Ukraine still holds. Ukrainians have described this to me as completely impossible and said that it would risk a mutiny against it in the army. This proposal, however, softened by the criterion that while the area would come under Russian administrative control, it would be demilitarized and supervised by neutral peacekeepers. And above all, the Ukrainian military must ask whether it is destined to lose this territory if the war drags on, and whether it is truly worth asking U.S. support and tens of thousands of lives in a futile attempt to risking U.S. support and tens of thousands of lives in a futile attempt to hold it. Other alleged concessions by Ukraine and Europe are not real concessions at all. It has long been obvious that the promise of NATO membership for Ukraine is empty. Yeah, that's not even a concession. That's just
never not happening.
Yeah, people got real mad about that and Crimea, and I was like, those aren't real concessions. Those are literally things that Zelensky was. Even in the Turkey plan peace negotiation, Zelensky had already conceded to that. And he said, oh, we'll have a referendum 15 years in the future. You're doing that because you want to not immediately concede that it's like, bygone territory. But you're doing that because you want to, full well that it's not ever going to be discussed, especially given the battle lines currently. And that you want to deal with it. You want to neutralize that point of contention without having Ukrainians assassinate you, right? That was the reason why he was saying that. So, so those aren't even necessarily concessions.
And the rest of this
is a concession though. The Donbass region is the most like ridiculous part of it, and on the Ukrainian part, that's the most aggressive concession that you are forcing Ukrainians to hold on to. And then on the other front, I think Russia's initial demand was like full disarmament, which is ridiculous.
No, that's not happening.
And that is a maximalist position that was never going to happen. And it seems like 250,000 standing troops or 600,000 standing military troops is like a concession that the Russians are making as opposed to demanding that they fully disarm.
I mean, it's direct. I mean, like it's obviously like directionally toward peace that's where the number moves. But again, I also think like there's a pretty long history of countries like this getting depleted and then like struggling to fill rank. Like it does seem to me that again, Ukraine, the biggest thing is that Donbass piece. Just if taking Anatol's reporting at its word, which is that Ukrainians are incredibly skeptical of being able to pull out of that, just that we hold this land and then we're going to retreat and just hand it over to the Russians. I mean, they'll have to come up with some elaborate or unconventional carrot to make it work.
Yeah. Other alleged concessions by Ukraine and Europe are not real concessions at all, as long as the promise of NATO membership for Ukraine is empty, since all NATO governments have made it clear they will never go to war to defend Ukraine. Something that I've also mentioned over and over again from the start, which is whenever people would come to me and say, Hassan, why won't you listen to the voices being made, the demands being made by Ukraine? I would say, okay, some of those voices understandably are demanding a no-fly zone. Why is that a non-starter for America? They're also demanding that Ukraine be defended by NATO military members. Why is that a non-starter for Western countries? The reason why it's a non-starter is because of nukes, okay? That was always a non-starter. They were making those demands as well. Those were righteous demands. Those are understandable demands, the demand for help from the Western world. And yet, weirdly enough, that was a non-starter for Western nations. They never even entertained it. And the reason why they didn't entertain it is because they did not want to start a potential nuclear holocaust with a nuclear armed nation. Okay? Anyway, Similar to the bar on NATO troops and hence the European reassurance force in Ukraine is meaningless because most European states have refused to take part in such a force. British officials, the chief advocates of the project, have even admitted that no British ground troops would be sent and that the whole idea depended on a U.S. backstop, which Trump will not provide. This was Keir
awesome.
Starmer, who literally said, yes, we're going to send 20,000 troops, some of our best men, which no, he wasn't. And then he quietly said, well, only if the United States defends, allows us to do so. And that also was never going to happen. There's also, you have to remember, like, there's political considerations for these countries as well. They already are experiencing an energy crisis in their own countries. They already have like domestic concerns that they have to worry about with like nationalist forces rising within the European continent and all of these other European nations. And I think like saying we're going to send troops to Ukraine to defend Ukraine without even American aid or American support is going to be a complete non-starter. There's just no shot unless you want all of these countries to be like run by at least aesthetically pro-Russia fascists, which historically they've been pro-NATO, the fascists in Europe. But it'll be like a Maloney-style situation.
Yeah, they'll campaign on.
Yeah, they'll campaign on. They'll use a pro-Russia position or no war with Russia as a position to win favor with the public and actually come into positions of power, even if they don't actually end up being pro-Russia when they're in office. Because like obviously for European fascists, especially in the Cold War, NATO was the only game in town that restored their power in all of these countries. It's just too much speculation. Yeah, of course, I'm doing political commentary about what could potentially happen. Of course, I'm speculating. It's analysis. It's you can disagree with it, but you have to tell me why you disagree with it. And so far, all of the disagreements come from people who say, "Oh, you're offering a cold hard analysis that I don't want to hear. I want you to tell me that like Ukraine is actually capable of militarily defending its own borders and even push back the Russian forces. They just need a little bit of time." This analysis is exactly, or this commentary is exactly what the media has been saying over and over again for the past couple of years now, and it has literally failed time and time again. That's it. Yeah. You'll notice the voices shouting down this latest chance for peace have no alternative plan. They're angry this wasn't the Hollywood war fantasy they wanted and subject Ukraine to more destruction out of petulance. It's basically the same as like the Danish guy that we listened to yesterday who went on Channel 4 and was like, we have to take matters into our own hands. We have to take matters into our, yeah. He literally was like, we have to take matters into our own hands. We have to defend Ukraine with our own militaries. If America's not going to step up, we're going to step up. It's like, if you're going to, if you're going to separate yourself from American hegemony, why the f would you do that for this and not for like a million other instances where the Rasmussen Global ex-Danish prime minister saying, we really have to separate ourselves from America only on this front, but not on like, tariffs or not on securing better relationships or at least like leveraging the relationship you have with China to secure more favorable deals with America in the way that like BRICS nations are doing. You know what I mean? Yeah, it's crazy that Europe won't even entertain that. I don't understand how comfortable they are being vassals to Donald fucking Trump.
Like Germany is like developing and like rapidly expanding its trade relationship with China. Like it's complicated. Like the European states talk a huge game about freezing out China and all this stuff, but that's not what trade balances reflect. And moreover, I also think that like part of what, at least with this Ukraine stuff, like these leaks, for example, at this point, it probably isn't about actually changing the outcome of what happens so much as it is about exacting like maximal political consequences on, your opponents, like making Witkoff and all these people, like entrenching in people's minds the idea that like, oh, these people with Russia, whatever, like, and also in the case of these European states too, like these people are, aligned with pro-Ukrainian interests and are, or at least like arms companies or whomever, and are not exactly in a position to suddenly like flip the switch in the other direction just because the facts have told them to. Sadly, that's not really how it works.
What do we do when he leaves?
We can keep talking. They still keep watching.
I just got back from Joshua Tree.
Oh yeah, wait, how was
That's
it?
why I'm sorry I'm not pitching in as much. It was good.
Yeah.
There for 2 days. It's nice. Went on a hike. Nice clear sky here.
What'd you
Unlike back
watch?
in our foggy, smoggy New York City. What
What did you guys watch?
while we were in the?
Yeah. I assumed you watched something.
We watched a lot of Mystery Science Theater.
Nice.
That's Libby, and I was visiting my friend.
Yeah, Libby, she streams.
She streams. Check out her stream on libtron.twitch.
Yeah, twitch.tv/Libtron. Close this stream. Just hit the X button immediately and go watch Libby, our friend Libby's stream.
Yeah, it's nice. Folks, we're both here. Noah and I are both here. You're only here for like another day, right?
I'm here for another few hours.
Okay, yeah.
And then
And
I'm done.
I'm here for the rest of the week. But it's nice. I've never been in this room before. I kind of thought it'd be more like vast. I thought it'd be like a
grand.
It looks like a palace when it's on the camera, but it's kind of cozy and nice.
Yeah, is a normal.
Well, so are you hungry yet, Hassan?
Wait, what is this? Raid her? What is happening?
Oh no, our friend Libby we were talking about.
Oh, they're like,
I didn't mean to cause
you have to raid her right now. She's not even live.
No, she's not even going to be on this week. Sorry.
Yeah, what the?
The words "raid her" are
chatters are so funny. They're like, yeah, end the broadcast, end the broadcast right now.
Yeah.
Yeah, things that do not have the same meaning in 2025 as they did in 1099.
Yeah. Oh, we got some fans in here. Yeah, she plays Soulsborne games. Yeah, they already know.
They know the score.
Offline raid her now. End the broadcast right now. Right at this very moment.
Wait, Hassan, do you want to have lunch yet?
Not very hungry at the moment,
Then
but
don't worry about
Can I
it.
get a soda?
but yeah, of course. What do you mean? What kind of question is that?
Again,
Oh, it's all zero sugar.
I had a Mr. Pibb yesterday.
Wow.
Hadn't had one of those in a long time. Basically, Dr. Pepper.
It is just Dr. I was trying to remember what it
There's
tastes
novelty
like.
to it. Sorry, I've thrown us off global politics.
Anyway, but as far as like Ukraine goes, what I'm trying to explain here is that I don't even think that America has enough political power to force Ukraine, or not force Ukraine necessarily, sorry, to force Russia to concede to whatever they want Russia to concede to. I don't even know if they want Russia to concede. And if you're talking about like whether or not they're sincere, only time will tell, especially because Russia has shown that they're insincere in their ceasefire demands in the past. The last time that Vladimir Putin was basically dangling a ceasefire deal in front of Donald Trump only to basically turn around, right? Like it was...
Yeah, I mean,
like if you recall, the last time there was even talks about a ceasefire negotiation, that was simply for Russia to continue advancing its position and then getting Donald Trump to undermine Ukraine on the global stage, and even at different points, get the American forces to retreat, like with their surveillance tech. Like there was a cutoff of like arms trades. Our arms deals for a brief moment for Ukraine. And that was very clearly Russia maneuvering around Donald Trump's inability to deal with the situation and the confidence that he had in his own, I guess, relationship with Vladimir Putin to undermine the Ukrainian position further.
well, it's reflective of where obviously the Trump administration is, but therefore where the American state is, that there was this assumption, I think, that a personal relationship, an individual like tete-a-tete, is going to be the difference between war and no war, rather than the, network and like just the tendrils creeping over every single aspect of the global economy, American economy, that are, there are deeper reasons for this kind of thing. And obviously, day one, he did not negotiate an end to the war. We talked about this with the Israel stuff. You do, from this angle, look like the cop from Weapons.
I've said that.
Alden Ehrenreich?
Yeah.
I'll take that. He's a
You
good-looking
do.
man.
You
look like Frankenstein.
God.
So we talked about this when we talked about Israel the past few times. Is like, I don't think I agree with people who say it is wholly kayfabe that America and Israel disagree, and that all these trips that diplomats take over there are just for their health. there is a waning of American power. We all know that. And it applies to keeping a rather, let's say, dodgy ally an ally that spies on you and sabotages you and humiliates you constantly, like Israel, whom you also do share interests with. I'm not denying that. And it applies to the same, not wanting to lose that ally, however shitty they are to you.
Mm-hmm.
Same deal when it comes to thinking that you can just have a personal rapport with the other president and bring something like the Ukraine war to an end. It's just, it's maybe that even could have been relied upon 15 or 20 years ago with a little bit more institutional chunk to it, but certainly not
you
now.
You can't freelance that. No. I think there's that piece of it. I mean, in general, I think a lot of people talked a huge game about how quickly they thought this would come together. Just if you had, we got the motivated party. Is there Trump wants a deal, Putin wants a deal, it'll just come together. And it's like, there are wars where people are far closer together on the actual terms of it. And, patrons are same as well, et cetera. And like the negotiations, don't work out or take forever. For a whole variety of reasons. I mean, it took years for the Vietnam War to end. And Americans were at the negotiating table for the better part of a decade.
I mean, I remember when libs were saying, "Oh no, the Ukraine war will end because Trump is so tight with Putin." That's what I mean. It's not just the Trump administration. There was a collective idea at this stage of America's, rot that everyone kind of agreed that it would be hashed out between two. In the libs' mind, two gang leaders, and in the minds of Trump people, between two elder statesmen. And it's just not how things typically work.
And also, there was this whole, I mean, at least to me, one of the things that is unresolved itself is also what this Ukraine is itself. I mean, it's another good point is something that we obviously emphasize in Blowback is that so-called vassal states are rarely ever often just totally limp appendages of the countries that fund them. Domestic politics in Ukraine do matter, and the clear ongoing competition for power may at this point kind of what it seems like to succeed Zelensky or to end things in a whatever the coalitional rearrangement that has to happen there. It does seem also that's been pretty neglected in our media, at least beyond just the periodic things it turns out this really senior guy.
They do bring that up now. And that to me is a telltale sign that they are also coming to terms with forcing Ukraine's hand to a shit deal that will violate whatever Ukrainian sovereignty could have existed. Because you start seeing pre-Russian invasion of Ukraine, there was a shit ton of articles about how there was corruption in Ukraine. If you recall, there was also coverage on the Azov battalion that even led to legislative action to basically deny weapons transfers to the Azov battalion because they were open neo-Nazi stuff like that, right? Whereas obviously in the process of the Russian invasion, all of that went away. And then now you're seeing...
You mean it went away in the coverage?
Yeah, it went away in the coverage, exactly.
Yeah.
But now you're kind of seeing Western outlets, American media still bring back, the corruption charges against Zelensky and in their coverage and stuff. And I think that is a way for the State Department to change their priorities or change their attitude about what to do with Ukraine. And that's the media coverage shifting reflects America's priorities shifting as well.
Yep.
That's what it's to pressure the Ukrainian side to basically play ball with whatever. That's a whole pound, by the way, of chicken breast kebab, an entire pound.
Oh, okay. Sorry, I just glanced at it. Then I could just split. So
do you want there's a regular plate?
Yeah, just
of chicken.
Exactly. Sorry.
Okay. No. Don't apologize. Do you want a whole pound? I can get you the whole pound.
No, I'm good on a whole pound. I'm humiliating myself.
Okay. What do you want?
Now I'm embarrassed. I can't.
What do you want on the side? Choose entree one: rice pilaf, bulgur pilaf, steamed veggies, potato fries, hummus, mutabal. Okay, and then the second entree is again Muhammad cabbage salad, Armenian salad, fatu salad.
I could do the cabbage salad, please.
Okay. And then you can make it kashka style or yogurt style if you want. The chicken shish kebab. All right, we'll do it yogurt style for you. Okay.
Style. Thank you.
No problem. No, I got a pound for myself, but I just wanted to make sure that he knew what he was getting into because he just added that on.
I just saw chicken, clicked it.
You look like 3 nice Turkish boys. True. This is the alternative universe.
We're gonna
do
look
actually-
even more Turkish when the food gets here.
That is
Yeah.
true. Well, and we also look. I think we may all look the same, but we are all also we're different
I
backgrounds.
don't think we look the same as him.
No. Whoa. Wait. What do
I
you know?
think-
You
I
saying
think
we
we
look
do.
really?
That's very flattering if they mean that.
I think we do. We look
I
like
think
different
it's more
variants.
the
They were
beardo
saying
complexion thing,
you guys look
not
like
the Adonis thing.
you were looking. They were saying you look like my brother. Like they were.
I'll
This
take
is
it.
like different variants.
This is a
Yeah,
discourse.
I'm Muslim Turkish. Where are you from originally? Aside from New Jersey.
Like a mix of like European trash.
Yeah. Ashkenazi.
Like just Jew.
Ashkenazi
more or
Jew.
less.
And then you're what?
a little bit all over, a bit of Eastern Europe, Irish from both sides of the family, Croatian.
Yeah, we got all the different variants. Someone said Israel. Come on, chatter. Jesus.
I'm
Anyway,
not here.
Yeah, somebody said at 160p we all look related, and that's what I meant when
Oh,
I
I
said
see.
we look alike, not
Yeah.
that we look
Yeah,
alike.
if you blur the image enough.
Exactly, you squint.
all right. So that's the potential Ukrainian deal at play here.
New Epstein stuff.
And every single time I talk about it, people yell at me and say, "This is my worst point of analysis. I'm weak on this front." And then they never follow up as to why that's the case. Like they will never just be like, "Here's why you're wrong."
It's
They'll
funny
just,
seeing people jump. If I was reading them right, it's funny seeing people jump down the throat. If you say, you talk about corruption, you talk about the genuine Nazi problem, as if it's just like
it's Russian propaganda.
as if it's like, okay, well, with Iraq, it was very difficult to avoid people talking about the genuine crimes of the Saddam government and somehow insist that meant you couldn't talk about the, illegality and evil of the invasion of Iraq.
Yeah.
That somehow when you're not supposed to mention any of that when it comes to, Russia's invasion was not.
I get hit on that front too, though. When
Yeah.
I talk about like Venezuela or Maduro, and I say that it's a red line to do any sort of like military incursion in Venezuela, regardless of whether Maduro is unpopular or not.
Mm-hmm.
And then people will yell at me and say I'm actually offering like legitimate reasons as to why Venezuela must be destroyed by people to the left of me on the anti-imperialist flank.
Right.
But in any case, that's it. That's the peace deal seems not to be as close as previously presented, and that Witkoff is seemingly more invested in trying to
Media
get
reporting that Ukraine has
trying to
apparently
get-
accepted
Trump to look good in this process with a position that's like more favorable to Russia, in my opinion. Hi, Dump here. So was the neo-Nazi thing just Russian propaganda? No, of course
No.
it wasn't Russian propaganda.
It was reported
there's-
on plenty before
Yeah.
the invasion.
You can also say that like Russia has a neo-Nazi problem in its forces as well, which is also true. There's neo-Nazis on both sides of this conflict.
I don't know if the Russian does have far right,
Yeah.
idiosyncratic Nazi style guys, but I don't think they're at the quite have made
No, it's
the
not.
trip
It's not
to
the
the
same.
commanding heights of the government and military
Yeah.
the way that has happened of Ukraine, including, by the way, a process
mean,
that
you
was
could- you could
sped up
just-
during this war as well.
Yeah, you could say that like the hyper nationalist like Duginist attitude is it's not like Russia is a socialist country and they are engaging in irredentist action. So you could literally say that the Duginist mentality is also not dissimilar to like some kind of nationalistic mythos that you see from fascists. But as far as like a straight line to like Nazi collaborators historically, you can draw a direct parallel with like a lot of the self-described fascist forces that have made that obviously had their positions emboldened in the aftermath of the
Also,
Russian
it's
invasion.
not just like neo-Nazis like as like this like
Yeah.
esoteric segment thing. It's like Stefan Bandera, national hero, stuff like that. Like it's not like again like I don't think it behooves anybody to get in a debate. I was like, well, there's Nazis on the right or like Nazis in Russia and Nazis in Ukraine. It's more that like, well, one, which government is funded by my tax dollars?
No.
Yeah.
And also to the idea that like, yeah, there is like a particular cultural heritage. I mean, it's not again, like Russia is historically also Russia is historically also the site of a lot of anti-Semitic violence.
I'm not going to look at the chat anymore.
My disagreement with you on Ukraine is that, in my opinion, you do not consider any of the levers of the pro-Ukraine alliance has to improve their negotiating position. Of course, it will end with concessions and a deal, but you seem to resign yourself to whatever the current deal someone puts out is. I just don't think that even the current deal that we have is going to be implemented. I'm a much more cynical person on this front, because I think I see that America does not have any kind of levers to pull any longer, and that we are at the mercy of whatever Russia chooses to do. That's how I see it. That's it. I think it's a sober assessment on the things that have happened so far.
Bandera is a anagram for Brendan, by the way. I just realized that.
Yeah.
There's actually
We have three main levers: high range weapons, intelligence sharing, and cutting off oil and gas. Okay. High range weapons we have shipped over. That doesn't actually change the battle lines, though. It just makes,
that's awesome.
you just kill more.
Remember the Podesta plan, the 3-part plan to defeat ISIS? Yeah, it's giving that.
You got high range weapons, right?
High range weapons.
Then you have intelligence sharing, which we're already doing. Let's say we do more, right? We do more high range weapon sharing, more intelligence sharing. As far as cutting off oil and gas goes, that's the most consequential one, beyond like punishing.
Hey, Europe won a depression.
Beyond punishing Russia. And that is the most effective tool of undermining the Russian economy and crippling the Russian economy. And yet that is a like beyond what we've done so far in terms of like the mother of all sanctions or whatever. There's a reason why they haven't been able to move past that point, because all of the other allies, all the other countries that are that have leveraged positions with Russia and the United States of America, or even with China, are not going to take that on.
I just have to.
India being the main one that I'm talking about, like or Kazakhstan, India, like these are entry points into the Russian economy, and they're benefiting greatly being mediators in this process. We have also not engaged with India. I think you're wrong. If you think that we haven't engaged with India, you're wrong. And as far as not engaging with China, I agree with you. I think that has always been at least my perspective, which is to offer China certain things so that they will come to the negotiating table as a senior partner in this coalition. Maybe you guys will disagree with me on this, even though it's an advantageous position for China to just basically kick back and trade max, as long as you can offer them certain things. Like as long as the American government can offer them like sanctions relief or any number of different things that China prioritizes, I think they would be willing to play ball and also force Russia's hand into coming to terms with like a ceasefire negotiation that's more manageable, that they actually will follow through on.
It's unclear. I mean, China, as you say, has been. I think in the very beginning they issued some kind of vague support for Russia, knowing that there would be backlash against.
They
the
did
invasion.
like a strategic embrace, like right after the invasion. There was like a big, like it wasn't like it was a way of saying we're on your side, but we're not like jumping in to support you like in this particular.
But the further it got from that initial starting point, the more they just basically, essentially withdrew any kind of actual possible support for Russia, even though things got worse in certain moments. I mean, we're all yapping here. I just find that the idea, it's like, well, we haven't tried, and then name 3 things we've tried.
Yeah, we have done that.
And then also cutting off oil and gas. It's like cutting, I mean, like as if that is not, you're talking about this like as you flip a switch and then you throw off, one of the major sources of energy for the world, most notably Europe.
And that was an advantageous position. That was an advantageous position for American gas providers. Like they already...
Yeah, LNG.
They already started supplying LNG from America to the best of their ability. But what you fail to consider is what you are not looking at is the political considerations, both on the European side, but even on the American side as well. Because then you have less power we have no control over the oil and gas giants in our country anyway, but like now they have a new market. Now they have a new market. It's beneficial for them. It's great for the companies, but it's not necessarily great for the American population. And it's certainly not great for the Europeans that are getting a higher price point, that are not getting the same oil and gas supply. Then you have an inflation. Then you have an inflationary crisis in all these other European countries, and that creates political instability further. So that's it. That's a major issue. That's a major consideration. That's why I'm saying that like. This is advantageous for China in many respects, which is why you have to offer them treats. The one thing that hasn't really been tried is trying to bring China to the table to get the senior partner in this coalition to come to terms with like a managed negotiation, a real ceasefire. My main point is that there's still more that can be done. We have very limited in some of these fields. I understand the limitations, but there's more that can be done, and Trump and Europe won't do to improve the negotiating position. They're selling out Ukraine for a worse deal than they could make.
I mean,
I don't know.
I mean, the U.S. is always going to sell you out. I hate to sound like this is all a sort of, formula that is now just we need to accept as being applied to an
It's the
entire
fake
population.
Kissinger quote.
What's that?
It's the fake Kissinger quote. To be America's enemy is bad. To be America's ally is worse.
Right.
It's not a real Kissinger quote, right?
I that sounds apocryphal.
That sounds it sounds like something he would know not to say.
It sounds
out
like
loud.
a spin on the real ones, like it's a pity they can't both lose
about
etc.
Iran and Iraq. Yeah,
But don't quote me on that. Don't quote me on the quote.
Yeah,
But
to be a U.S. enemy is brutal. Being a U.S. ally is lethal.
It's
fatal.
And also, like, I mean, the president of America is Donald Trump. Like, I agree with you that, like, yeah, like, it would be great if American diplomatic leadership was, like, run by grown-ups at this moment, but, like, pretty clearly.
But even the Biden administration, I mean, I'm sorry.
I'm not holding them as,
NATO
like, a better
was nothing you are, but
yeah.
NATO was never going to be on the table. This was obviously supposed to bleed Russia. It was Afghanistan in the 80s, part 2. And that was the calculation from the beginning. No one ever actually thought this was going to result in anything but bloodletting on both sides, enough to punish Russia, enough to, eventually bring Ukraine to the table, given that it's always going to have been outnumbered.
And a very particular kind of hubris, right? Actually, I do think that they believed that even if it wasn't going to resolve soon, that the arc of this conflict would ultimately favor them because Russia idiot, Russia inferior, Russia unable to compete.
I just wish you had the same kind of smoke for Russia that you have for Israel.
Right.
I also feel you are at least slightly defeatist. Nothing is certain. This is what it all comes down to. This is what it all comes down to, which is that, like,
armchair generals.
You want me to be like, no, you're right. Ukraine is capable of defending itself all the way to the last man. That's what you want to hear me say. That's it. No one ever says this about the ceasefire negotiation. That's bullshit. When I'm still saying that it's a good thing overall that there's a cessation of hostilities with respect to Israel continuing its, like, full-blown genocide, right? And you also have to remember, we are arming and funding the Ukrainian side. We are arming and funding the Israeli side, perhaps more significantly, as a matter of fact, than we are arming and funding the Ukrainian side. The entirety of the Western world, in many respects, moved away from Ukraine quickly as a direct consequence of how much they redoubled their efforts to allow Israel to finish off its genocidal project in Gaza. So there's also that as well. But ultimately, like I said, this is, it doesn't seem to me like you're upset. You're more so upset with, like, what you are hearing rather than whether or not my analysis here is incorrect. That's it. Yeah. And I don't think that, like the equivalence here would be if I was saying that, like, Hamas has the capacity to militarily defeat Israel and they should keep fighting, and that's never been my position. Yeah, they don't like your tone, not your analysis.
The American peace proposal. Let's talk to our international correspondent, Alex Rossi, and our defence and security analyst, Professor Michael Clark, with me in the studio here. So, Alex, to you first of all. So this is, it seems like we've moved forwards, according to American media, but we're not clear whether this is just a slight embellishment on what we knew last night. Tell us where we are with what we know about what Ukraine has agreed to.
Well, it is all fairly unclear. What is clear is that President Zelensky and the Ukrainians are in a difficult position, obviously have been for 11 years since the Russians invaded Crimea and then the full-scale invasion. But this appears to be the answer to what Trump is putting forwards with his initiative. We're hearing, I'll just read you these lines, Rustem Umerov, the National Security Advisor.
So Gaza should sign the peace deal that would give Israel control over its land. It's already out of the hands of the Palestinians. That's the point. That's my sober analysis on that, is that, like, there's not more that the Palestinians can do. Also, as I have repeated over and over again, what will happen in Donbass and in other regions of Ukraine is not dissimilar to what, like, Hamas is doing as an insurgency against the domineering occupational forces. That's most likely what it's going to look like, funded, unlike Hamas, funded by Western intelligence as well. So that's most likely what's going to happen, to punish Russia's occupation to the best of their ability. and make it as difficult as possible for there to be a permanent occupation of Eastern Ukrainian territory. But that's it. That's very different than state versus state warfare, though.
I don't want to jump down anyone's throat just for making an analogy because, you know, sometimes they're useful. The idea that this is something you can just one-to-one, as if Ukraine has been occupied by Russia for the past better part of a century, that they have had the keys in terms of, you know, especially with Gaza, in terms of water and
you don't
food.
understand. Palestinians also had nuclear, the Israeli nukes in the same way that Ukraine did.
Right.
The codes were in the codes were in Tel Aviv, but they had the nuclear stockpile.
And they just, even as you just mentioned, the asymmetrical nature of the warfare. I mean, this is just, you can't just say, oh, so you're saying that in Gaza, X, Y, and Z, just like this. It sounds foolish. I'm sorry. It's just, these are not comparable conflicts in most ways that you're trying to put the square peg in the round hole. It's just not going to work.
Yeah.
Come up with something else.
Just as like our allegiance is entirely on the opposing side here. It's like if America was like funding the Russian incursion into Ukraine as it's funding the Israeli genocide of Palestinians after 80
Someone
years
saying
of
Ukraine
apartheid and
was
occupation.
occupied by Russia for the better part of a century.
I know. When I heard
Sorry,
when
you
I heard
lost me. I'm out.
when I heard you say that, I was like, somebody is going to reply.
Yeah.
I hate that, but people get so mad at that. They make it seem like that is the case. Like it's.
Well, you know, they can.
Whatever. I'm out. It's
They
fine.
can-
There's a planetary difference between us.
Yeah,
then. I can't get into it. What are you gonna do?
Yeah. It's the same Cheddar who was critiquing you. I know. You're right. Yes, it's the same.
Free tip, critique, not a verb.
Yeah.
A US official say that there is now an
Same.
understanding
Impact,
on a
too.
proposal that has been reached, but details still need to be worked
Sometimes
out.
when I do engage in this discourse, though, I'm like, maybe America should actually militarily engage so we can just die in a nuclear holocaust. Like I think I'd rather die in the nuclear winter with the final "I told you so" as like the nuclear sponge. The 5 states in the United States of America are eating the first barrage of missiles.
It's
and
a
I'm
nice
just
thought.
sitting here going, hey guys, what happened? I can't believe I can't believe the thing that I said was going to happen is happening right now. Well, anyway, signing off because I can see the mushroom cloud from outside of my window. Well, but at least I don't have to deal with you dipshits anymore. So it, you know, you would be streaming. Oh, 100% I'd be streaming.
Do you have a plan? You know, like CNN, like Ted Turner made
Oh,
them.
yeah.
Which is beautifully parodied in Gremlins 2. CNN, on Ted Turner's instruction, had a tape they were going to play if the missiles were in the air, and it was like a military band playing, you know, some old standard.
Yeah, my thing is I'm just gonna offer analysis till the very last moment.
Oh, that's
No.
banger
You'll finally play video games on stream.
yeah. No, you should play. You should jump on.
I'm
You know,
gonna be like, hey
Helldivers.
guys, there's like a million people tuning in to watch the very last
playing-
moments, and I'm like, hey, you know what? Today, actually, I'm gonna finally play a video game.
We're doing
okay?
Final Fantasy 14 for 72 hours straight.
Yeah, IRL Mushroom Cloud stream. Let's go. Yeah, Fallout Ghoul Arc after. Yeah. The stream picking up Will and Caroline from the fires was diabolical levels of content brain. I did do that during the wildfires.
That's pretty good content. I mean,
Yeah.
but that, like...
What do you mean? You evacuated people?
Yeah.
Oh, that's cool. I mean,
like a Resident Evil or something.
Yeah.
That would be pretty funny live streaming, like, you know, like a zombie or vampire apocalypse or whatever.
I think someone made a movie about that.
It has to by now.
No, there was George Romero. Unfortunately, one of his last movies was called like, it wasn't Stream of the Dead, but it could have been, and it was just like found footage of people being like, we're streaming to the viral network, and it was just another shitty zombie movie.
Yeah.
But you know, you could remake that maybe.
So let's rewind a little bit. The 28 point peace plan that the Americans kind of sort of sidelined everybody with when they came out with it. Discussions in Geneva. Those discussions then led, we think, to a 19-point peace plan. The Ukrainians were saying after those meetings that they had kind of agreed to that. And now this appears to be confirmation of that. But of course, the big question in all of this is, will the Russians agree to the changed text on the 28-point peace plan? The likelihood is that that isn't going to happen. We've already heard from the Kremlin that anything that's acceptable to the Europeans would not be acceptable to the Russians. They're maximalist demands, of course, will have been watered down. So they are unlikely to go for it. So what we are seeing is diplomacy about how to deal with Donald Trump's diplomacy. The Ukrainians know that they cannot flatly say no to Donald Trump. They need to flatter him. They need to engage with the process. That's what seems to be happening here. They, of course, will hope that the Russians will reject this. That, again, though, is unlikely because Vladimir Putin knows the man that is Donald Trump very well, and he will know how to engage and how to deal with this ball when it comes back. He will likely say, it's a very complex situation. We need more time. We need further discussions. But yes, in theory, we are willing to go ahead with this. So that's where we stand at the moment.
Michael, do you concur with this, that although we haven't got to this stage before in terms of a peace proposal on the table, it is following the same pattern that we have seen in the negotiations where Ukraine agrees to stuff, but then when it goes back to Russia, it all seems to get thrown into the long grass.
Square bracket.
Yeah, that's the real point to consider here, is that like Russia could once again dangle a potential ceasefire to just simply continue whatever its military objectives are, while trying to actively undermine.
Michael, your take on
how Russians are exploiting American naivete is the other side of this equation, which is like what they've done so far. They keep coming to the table to be like, oh yeah, we want a ceasefire, only to not do the ceasefire at all, to be like, oh, it's just not right now, not the right time for us, you know. Yeah. Sorry. And that is the very real consequence of this potentially, but we'll see. We'll see where it goes. And that's part of the reason why I keep saying the best meaningful solution here is like, oh, someone said, Zelensky's rumored to be preparing a speech about
really
free
good.
buses and rent freeze in Kyiv.
That's really good.
That's the other big Z. Yeah. Aubrey gets a Red Bull. Okay, citizen of Romania here. I see my government and media here prepping the propaganda to justify ours and EU's active involvement in the war. What the hell's going on? I don't think it's going to happen, but then again, I'm not making any predictions on this one, okay? Because this is the one where I famously got it wrong when I said Russia is bad, not mad. They will not invade Ukraine. And everybody loves bringing that up, even though all the subsequent analysis that I engaged in was correct, even down to the fact as to why this would be a massive failure, a spectacular failure for all the parties involved, except for the American military-industrial complex, which is, you know, that they made out like bandits here, taking the $52 billion hole in their budget from Afghanistan and directly putting it into Ukraine was fantastic for them.
It was a pretty nice move.
Yeah. Anyway. All right, we're moving on from this.
a judge throughout it.
Another one on the map. And start pumping.
Start going.
Got a